IPNav has a reputation for its fierce pursuit of patent claims. Now, while that's been rewarding for some entrepreneurs, the executives on the receiving end just dread getting that phone call from CEO Erich Spagenberg. But there's a change at the top. Deirdre Leane is taking over as president and later in 2014 as chief executive. In this wide-ranging interview, IPBC Global's Richard Lloyd talks to her about the aggressive style of IPNav, as well as the impact of that on the industry, and what it's like being a woman in such a male-dominated industry. Richard starts by asking her how her day job is going to change as a result of her promotion.
Probably not a whole lot in many ways. I've a very, very active presidential role at IPNav. Erich obviously is the current CEO and chairman. As I move into the CEO role, I become a lot more hands-on in our strategy, as you know, with the company moving forward, the kind of projects that we take on, which Erich is a superb boss. He has me involved in all of these things at this point, but the purpose is for me to take a more active role, particularly from the public perspective as well. Day to day, a lot will change, but a lot won't change, sort of to wear many hats.
Do you see specific changes that you'd like to make, or perhaps that you're putting in place now together with Erich and taking IPNav in perhaps a slightly different direction?
Absolutely. So we've been making a lot of changes since January of this year, really, in anticipation that this was going to happen. The focus was to move our business to much larger portfolios. You'll see during the panel discussion that I'll be doing tomorrow, I'll be talking a lot about our strategy and how we change and how the market has changed and how that impacts on what we do. So we've moved from traditionally smaller portfolios with a number of patents to much larger portfolios where we get to assert a lot more patents, and out the threat of IPRs and so on.
And how big are we talking when you say much larger?
One that's very much in the public domain. There are 500 plus patents in that portfolio, and we mine that for key maybe 15, 20, and we assert up to 15 of those. So that's the shift that we're moving towards, some much larger, high quality patents.
And why that shift?
The IPR is making it too easy to invalidate patents with the obviousness. Even citations that have been used during the prosecution are killing patents through IPRs. So if you have much larger portfolios where you can pull out some 15 gems and assert those, it's unlikely, mind you, it might happen, but it's unlikely that all 15 will go into an IPR. So you balance your risk going forward.
Are you surprised at the impact that inter partes reviews are having on the market?
You know, it's funny. We were just talking about this with my panel members, and we're gonna. It's on topic for us to talk about tomorrow at the panel as well. It's been named the kiss of death right up until a couple of months ago. Anything that was going to IPR was being invalidated, primarily around this obviousness. We've been very successful recently with winning on our IPRs for our clients. We work very hard to ensure that we obtain valid, strong patents, and it's now reaping the benefits because we're winning in our IPRs. So where the IPRs are being denied. And now the pendulum is starting to shift back. So we went from 90 plus kill rate to, I think the stats are around 82% now, and I think you'll see that shifting towards 70. So we had this big swing, and now we're recovering back again. So I think it's probably going to level out and even out soon.
A lot of the people here, a lot of the delegates here, of course, have a legal background,
yes,
which is quite common in the patent world. You obviously have more of a science background.
I do.
How important do you see that, and is the lawyer on his way out in the patent market?
I don't think so. I think I'm unusual. Most of my colleagues, most of the people I deal with on a day-to-day basis outside of our CSO or similar engineers when you're on defendant conversations, most of them are lawyers, and I think the lawyers will always lead this, be it from prosecution or litigation perspective, or even the IPR lawyers now as well. And I'm not, but my science background, it's harder to teach the lawyer the science than teach the scientist the law. So I have learned the law to the extent that I need it to conduct my day-to-day role. And when I don't know, I've got counsel. And now, going back to the IPR piece that we just spoke about, having a science background to test the validity of the patent is becoming more and more important. And I think that's another reason why we're shifting our business as well.
Do you think we'll see more people like you, senior executives, with more of the science?
If the industry allows it.
If the industry-
Yeah, I would like to see it. Obviously, I'm here to promote the non-lawyers, but
Sure.
yeah, if the industry allows it. But I think the industry is very, and rightly so, is led by lawyers because this is a legal business.
You obviously are a part of a very high-profile business in the patent market. You're also taking over from someone who's a very, very high-profile part of that community. Is that a challenge for you?
Erich's shoes are super difficult to fill. Super difficult. He is. Anybody who knows him, he's an outstanding character. He's an amazing boss. I've learned so much from him, and I like to think he's learned something from me as well. But I am very, very comfortable taking over from Erich, and nobody likes a challenge more than me. But Erich's not going away. I mean, he's sidestepping, continuing on as chairman, so he will always be there as my mentor, and no better mentor to have than Erich. But yeah, I think the public perception, they probably don't know what to think of me yet. But following Erich's footsteps is a welcome challenge for me. I'm looking forward to it.
How do you explain what you do as a business to the man on the street who might hear bits about patents and Apple, Samsung, litigation, for example, but won't really understand what a licensing business does? Where do you start with them?
Sometimes I talk about Robin Hood. Sometimes I refer to the Apple and Samsung patent wars because anybody reading a newspaper or listening to the news knows about that. Now they don't know the ins and outs, but one particular portfolio that I've been pretty successful in monetizing is a semiconductor portfolio. It really, really was invented by a guy in his basement, and he approached the semiconductor industry. They were not interested for obvious reasons, but we've been very successful in licensing it. And I use that as the example because people resonate to somebody remortgaging their house to pay for the patent prosecution, not going on family holidays to pay for the prosecution of the patents. And then when they get them and go to do something, the industry doesn't take them seriously because they're just Joe Blogs in his basement. Who are you?
But what do you say to those people who say, a lot of them who aren't here,
Yes.
but would say you're part of the problem?
Me, IPNav is a part of the
Is
problem.
part of the problem.
Well, I don't think so. I think if we were to interview that inventor straight after me, he certainly wouldn't say that.
But do you think the licensing community has got a challenge in terms of getting the message across about what you do and perhaps educating the public and improving your public profile?
I think traditionally, companies like us have not been good about talking about what we do in the industry. I think we're a fundamental part of the licensing piece.
Yeah.
I think these kind of events are really helpful in getting our message across because we'll sit up there with the large corporations and there's no difference between what they do and what we do. And in fact, the large corporations hire us to license their patents. So the public perception, I think, is we're a necessary evil when you don't want to do it yourself. But maybe for Joe Blogs on the street, we haven't really done such a good job in explaining what we do. Maybe I need to take that one to task.
Where do you start with a business that comes to you and says, we have this patent portfolio, a few hundred, we know it's good quality, help us?
Yeah, and we do a lot of initial reviews on behalf of clients. So clients will come to us with portfolios with the view to license them. We do a full due diligence check, both for infringement and validity, and the IPR piece is driving the validity with us. If we can tick both of those boxes, we look to the market. Is this a portfolio that's going to generate sufficient revenue for our client, and what would that look like? And then who are the parties within the market and jurisdiction? and then we'll build a strategy and present it back to the client. And if we fall down at any point within our checklist, of which that's only a small subset, we will recommend to the client that this is certainly not something that we would feel comfortable moving forward with, and either recommend another party or thank them for thinking of IPNav.
And when you knock on the door to start licensing negotiations, is that door opening a bit more easily now?
IPNav's name carries a certain, I won't say threat, but we're known in the business, and we don't bring cases lightly. So if we're cross-referencing and ticking off all of those boxes, we know that we have a strong patent that we want to license. And I think the IPNav name and all of Erich's last 12 years of building the company up to this level and having the recognition in the industry that he has and now IPNav has, it certainly opens more doors than perhaps another party. But people are amenable to talking pre-litigation, certainly to us, because they know the next step is to litigate, and if we can avoid it, we will.
Do you think it's important for the business that you are now becoming CEO and it doesn't just become the Erich?
Selfishly, of course. Yeah, I think it's time for a fresh face, and I think if you were to ask Erich the same question, he would say that. And not being a feminist, but I'm glad it's a woman. It's a very, 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 very male-dominated environment.
Yeah.
And you just look here, there's probably about 5% women. So I'm just glad Erich believed in me, and I happen to be female. So
do you think the market should be doing more to sort of champion women within the market, the community?
I read a lot about women in powerful positions within law firms, and there really aren't that many. And it's not that the industry is not amenable to it, it's just doesn't seem to be happening. Women's, maybe their personal lives take over, I'm not sure. But I think there's an increasing trend of women in higher profile positions, regardless of whether it's in the monetization business or not.
Would you be interested in playing a more formal role in trying to put something together? Well, a networking community or...
Yeah, if I had time. I think now as I move to take over from Erich, and my 4 now becomes 5 hats. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm all for women in good positions.